Someone beat Christine Morton to death in her own bed. Her 3-year-old son was in the house when it happened. Within weeks, police arrested her husband, Michael. He would lose nearly 25 years to a cell. He didn't do it. DNA would prove that. But the system doubted him from day one and buried it. By the end of this, you won't just be angry at one prosecutor. You'll see how the machine was built to let him win. Because while an innocent man sat in prison, the real killer stayed free. Free long enough to kill again. Her name was Debra Baker. Michael Morton managed a grocery store outside Austin, Texas. He'd been married to Christine for 7 years. They had one son, Eric. Eric was born with a heart defect that nearly killed him as a baby. Weeks before the murder, his surgery finally went right. The family exhaled. August 12th was Michael's 32nd birthday. They went out to dinner. The next morning, he left a note on the bathroom mirror. It ended, "I love you." He clocked in before sunrise. Coworkers said he seemed completely normal. 12 miles away, a woman named Debra Baker was alive and well. She had 17 months left. Remember her. We come back to her. By noon, a neighbor found little Eric wandering the yard alone. Inside, Christine was dead, beaten in her bed, a basket left on her body. There was no weapon, no fingerprints matching Michael, no blood on him. None of that mattered. The sheriff had already made up his mind. He read Michael his rights at his own kitchen table. Days later, deputies came to the door and pulled Eric from his father's arms. The boy was screaming. Michael was charged with his wife's murder. The trial opened in February 1987. There was no murder weapon, no physical evidence. The case was a story. The prosecutor's story. Michael killed Christine in a rage over rejected sex. To make it fit, a medical examiner fixed the time of death at 1:15 a.m., a time Michael was indisputably home. The method? Stomach contents. That method wasn't reliable then. It isn't now. But the real story sat inside the lead investigator's file. Sergeant Don Wood had collected evidence pointing away from Michael. The defense noticed something strange. Prosecutors refused to call Wood, so the judge ordered the prosecutor to hand over Wood's complete reports. Turn over anything that could help the defense. A direct order. Ken Anderson gave the judge a thin file and said, "Nothing favorable here." It was a lie. Here's what that file left out. Eric had told his grandmother a monster killed his mother. A monster with a big mustache. And his daddy was not home. Neighbors had reported a green van parked behind the house again and again. Christine's credit card surfaced in San Antonio after her death. And a blood-stained bandana found 100 yards away the day after. None of it reached the jury. None of it reached the defense. The prosecution turned a grieving man's silences into a motive. Years later, a former colleague testified Anderson knew about the boy's account. He had even brainstormed how to explain it away in court. The jury convicted Michael. The sentence was life. The prosecutor said life was more than Michael deserved. Michael Morton went to prison for a murder he did not commit. He earned 2 degrees. He read Dante. He refused to break. In 2010, the state offered parole if he'd admit guilt and show remorse. He said no. All I have left is my actual innocence. By then, the Innocence Project had joined. Lawyer John Raley worked for free. Since 2005, they fought for one thing: test the bandana. The new district attorney was John Bradley, Anderson's former protege. Bradley fought the DNA testing for 6 years. He said testing would muddy the waters. Raley's answer? Truth clarifies. In 2010, an appeals court overruled him. Test the bandana. The results came back in 2011. The blood was Christine's. The rest of the DNA belonged to an unknown man, not Michael. The national database returned a name: Mark Allen Norwood, a drifter with a long record, living near the Mortons in 1986. And then the discovery that changes everything. Norwood's DNA matched a hair from a second murder scene. Debra Baker, beaten to death in her bed, January 1988, 17 months after Christine, while Michael sat in a cell. The man they let walk killed again. That is the cost. A private investigator finally found Norwood. He was arrested. On October 4th, 2011, Michael Morton walked out of prison. Nearly 25 years. 8,989 days. This is where it stops being one man's tragedy. In 1963, the Supreme Court ruled prosecutors must share evidence that helps the accused. It's called Brady. The catch, the prosecutor decides what counts. The same person trying to convict you decides what could free you. When DNA threatened the verdict, the office fought 6 years to bury it. Why protect a verdict you might be wrong about? Because verdicts are currency. Convictions build careers. Anderson became a judge. Prosecutors carry near total immunity. They almost never pay. Which is why what happened next was historic. Texas convened a court of inquiry, not a trial, an investigation into Anderson. The judge found he had hidden evidence to tilt the field against Michael. Anderson pleaded no contest to contempt. He surrendered his law license. He became the only Texas prosecutor ever jailed for this kind of misconduct. The case produced a law, open file discovery across all of Texas. It carries Michael Morton's name, but no law brings back Debra Baker. Here's what I can't get past. Michael Morton served 8,989 days. The prosecutor who hid the evidence served 5. 5 days. Not for a paperwork error, for looking a judge in the eye and lying. For a child's voice, a bandana, a green van, all buried. I don't think Ken Anderson is a cartoon villain. The truth is worse. The system made hiding that evidence the rational move. Win the case, climb the ladder, pay almost nothing if you're caught. And the bill goes to people who never got a vote. Christine, Michael, Eric, and Debra Baker, who should be alive. When the rules only bind the powerless, justice is just a word on a building. So here's my question for you. An innocent man lost 25 years. The prosecutor lost 5 days. What should the punishment have been? If this made you angry, that's the point. Channel it. Subscribe. On this channel, we don't just accept the official story. If you want to keep flipping the script on the cases the whole world got wrong, subscribe to Verdict Flipped. There's always another side to the truth. See you Saturday.